Well, it's officially that time of year where the birds are chirping endlessly
The
outside my window, and
birds, they are singing.
I see them being picked up on my audio a little bit. So, listeners, if you hear a little bird chirping here and there, that's just me. I record in front of a window.
Yeah. Yesterday, I felt like there were these birds that were just talking all day. And it got to a point where I was like, it's beautiful, but shut up,
They
honestly.
they really go on. Like where my office is, there's a bunch of windows,
Hmm.
and they're out there. Like yeah, it's that time of year. Yesterday there was like three playing on some power line outside the window, and I was like, okay, I
Hmm.
get it, but it's like incessant
I know, I know. It
chirping.
just like gets into your ear and you're just like, shut up. There are these three crows the other day.
Oh no,
Or which ones are the smaller ones? Crows or
crows,
ravens? Okay, but
crow.
they're three crows. And they were just going off and we were watching them and two of them were attacking this squirrel in a tree. The squirrel kept getting away, but they kept like hawking him, well, crowing him, I guess. Um, and then there's another crow that was injured in the street, so we
Oh
don't even know
no.
what was going on. We missed like the injury, whatever, but they were going. And I was like, I we don't usually hear crows. It's usually like these little like tweety like
Yeah. Well, if you do want to make friends with crows, you can leave them peanuts. We actually had a whole episode about crows. If you're interested,
if you're
anyone.
interested.
But yeah, if you leave them peanuts, then you can become friends with them, and then they might bring you any shiny things that they find. You know,
That's amazing. Maybe I should. I only have cashews in the house. You think that would work?
they would like that, yeah. But that's
Hmm.
expensive.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean, I eat
don't get
them.
them used to that. Is
Oh,
what
true.
I'm
I see.
saying.
I see.
Like,
I see.
and they'll be
Yeah.
asking for them.
If you're looking for deals on nuts, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
Aldi recommend.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Good
we
to
got
know.
you get a huge tub of cashews for a very good price, reasonable price.
Well, this episode is brought to you by Aldi's, I wish. And you're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword. I'm Grace Topinka.
I'm Chelsea Rowan. This is your favorite quote unquote weekly pod word crosscast, and we are back again for another week in paradise. Yeah,
Another week.
we've been taking a little bit of time off. Things have been, just things have been going on. I'm
I
not
was
trying to be
in
cryptic, but
I was in Gay Paris, if anyone's wondering. So
She
yes, I
was.
was in. It was fun to go to Paris. Like I feel like we've talked so much about Paris on the podcast. Everything just ends up happening there. So I was like thinking about all our little different topics and stuff.
That's so funny.
But yeah,
Was it your first time in Paris?
none. No,
No.
actually, that's not even French. But no, I went when I was studying abroad because I studied abroad in Spain. So, but yeah, it was
Same.
It was
I,
nice.
I
I have
went
to
when I
say,
studied abroad too. Oh my god, twins.
even though the French are, they're so funny to me.
I agree.
I'm not going to get into it, but
She's
they
not
really
gonna
just
get into it.
they make me laugh. And I was so dehydrated while I was there. I'm so happy. I'm here with my full 40-ounce water bottle filled with ice water. And while I was there, I was getting TikToks of this is something that we've talked about on the podcast a lot. How like Europeans don't drink water or like
Yes.
water is not readily available.
Yeah.
And someone was posting about how like they ran a marathon in Europe, an American, and they said that their marathon time was like an hour later because there wasn't any water stations. Like there weren't as many water stations. So they really don't drink them as much water there. I don't know.
What
I
is
mean, I
going
guess
on?
they're used
What
to it.
is
But I
going
felt
on?
like the whole time I was there, I could feel my body like shriveling up.
You're just like your skin is like getting drier and drier. Yeah.
Right? I'm drinking like chugging 4 glasses of water before going out for the day because who knows the next time. Although it is my fault because I love to order a cheeky Coca-Cola.
You
know.
gotta have a
There's
Coca-Cola.
like a European Coca-Cola at a cafe.
I cannot recall a memory of a European Coca-Cola at a cafe, which is a shame. I'll just say that. It's a shame. Which means I have to go to Europe just to get my
Right.
Coke.
It's different there. It's in a glass bottle. They put a little lemon.
Amazing.
But anyways, enough about me. We're back.
Enough. We're back.
Better than ever.
Yes, we are. We're back. We're happy to be back. And we're going to hop right into our poll, our Pollapalooza. Grace ran a good poll this week.
Right. I ran 2 polls because I forgot to run the poll for last time. And the second poll, or the first poll was about Slurpees. So I said, what is your Isley/Slurpee flavor profile? And I did dark soda, that's like a Coca-Cola root beer, lemon lime, wild cherry, or blueberry. And 45% of people, number one answer was dark soda. And we talked about this on our Slurpee episode. I agree, Coke is my favorite.
There's there's a comment on that poll from a woman I went to high school with, a friend of mine, and she wrote "boost!" exclamation point, and it brought back a like tsunami of memories for me. I had forgotten about Boost. Boost was the Slurpee flavor of my high school. Like, it's Coke syrup, but because it doesn't have the carbonation, it basically tastes like flat Coke in a way.
Okay.
But
And they
everybody
had this
was
at 7-Eleven.
Yes. I think it was 7-Eleven. I never personally drank Boost, so I don't know if it was just like a 7-Eleven flavor or if it was like there was a specific place people got it, but everybody, like a local convenience store, like family-run convenience store, but everybody was drinking Boost. Everybody was drinking Boost. After high school, people were like, oh, let's get a Boost, let's get a Boost, let's get a Boost. And I didn't like Slurpees at the time. I'm still not like a Slurpee girl, so I would always be like, I'd rather just get a Pepsi or something, like whatever. But yeah, let me know if anybody else had Boost in their, like, I don't know, town or whatever, if it was just a Jersey thing, South Jersey thing. But yeah.
Sounds like a Jersey thing. Someone else commented and said, when I was younger, we would mix all the flavors available into one cup and for some unknown reason call it a suicide. That's called the swamp water or whatever is what. Or like, I forget what it was called. Maybe it was, Slurpee swamp water. That's the, like, people who are into Slurpees call it that when you mix them all. But when I was in Denmark, I had a layover in Copenhagen, and there was a 7-Eleven there. Because, there's 7-Elevens, like, all over Europe.
Everywhere,
and they did have ices, but they weren't called Slurpees.
What were they called?
They were called something, some Danish name. But
interesting. Did you get
one? The tagline, no, I didn't. The tagline said, "Oh, thank heavens."
Well,
I don't know if it's because, like, it's 7-Eleven.
I think that's an old 7-Eleven tagline.
Right.
Like an old one. There's like a 7-Eleven near me that has not changed their branding or marketing for, it seems like, at least 20 years. And they have the, "Oh, thank heavens" slogan with like the food pictures from the 90s. It's wild.
I love that. Okay, well, that explains it. But yeah, they weren't I thought that Slurpees were only in North America, but that's not true. They have them at the Copenhagen airport, at least.
The very least, in Copenhagen at the airport. So if you're trying to get your Slurpee fix while living in Copenhagen, you got to go through the TSA, their version of TSA.
Right. And then I also asked, where would we find you at the casino? I swear to you, I posted this poll like 2 days ago, and then I went to check yesterday, and it wasn't there. So I reposted again. But options were card table, slots, roulette, or craps. Crap, whatever you call it. And 83% of the vote voted for the card table, which is crazy. Because that's like...
That is crazy.
I don't know.
You gotta have money to do that.
Yeah.
Because, like,
also, it's like, it's different. You're, like, talking to real people.
Matt and I did the card table once just to have the experience. And this is when I went to Atlantic City on spring break in college, as like a senior in college, maybe. Or junior. I can't even remember. I think it was senior year, though. We sat for 2 hands. Matt doubled his money, and mind you, it was like a $10 buy-in or something. So he was at $20, net 10 or something. And he was like, "Okay, I'm done." And the table was like, "What?" And we're like, "Bye." And then we went and cashed out, and the people at the window laughed at us. And it's like, do you realize that I'm only just like 22, he's 23, like, if you like, we were digging deep in our pockets for the money to even buy into this table, let alone like stay for multiple hands. It's crazy.
I feel like I don't even really know how to play any of those card games either. Like, I think I kind of know how to play blackjack. Is that what you played, or were you playing like?
I think it was blackjack. Yeah.
Or
was it Texas Hold'em? I can't remember. It was one of those, but yeah.
Yeah, it's too stressful for me. Well, second place and the only other one people voted for was slots, and that's probably what I would do, I think, because it's truly random.
Yeah, and you can just sit in your cute little outfit, drink your Coca-Cola, and
press a button.
Press buttons, and that's it. That's all you need.
Although I tried to play slots, I had a layover in Vegas, so I didn't actually go, but the airport has slot machines, and so I was like, well, let me just I lost like all my money. I put like $10 in, but for like the dollar slots, I have no idea what I'm doing is the thing. Because all this stuff is happening on the screen, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I need to, before we go to Vegas, I have to read up on how to even play slots.
We'll read up, and yeah, it's when I was at the casino, one of the things that I really wanted to do was smoke a cigarette. I
Mhm.
have literally, that sounds disgusting to me, but just the vibe of like sitting there with a drink and like smoking or something, I'm like, that's kind of like the vibe. But I'm like, obviously I don't smoke and I don't plan to. But,
You could get like those gum cigarettes.
oh, good idea. People would look at us like, what is wrong with these two?
Like, we just want the vibe. You don't want
We're
any
just
of
here
the
for
health
vibes.
effects.
Yeah. Also, outside of Las Vegas, we should go to the ones in Indiana. We always talked about
The
it. Like, get
horseshoe.
exactly.
I swear our friend Mike went.
He
when
went.
we were like his friends, but he didn't go to the horseshoe one.
Didn't he go to the boat one?
Yeah, he went on a boat.
We
But
had to do the boat one.
Yeah, and get really dressed up. But I don't want to stay at the hotel there. I don't know.
That the problem is I don't want to drive in without staying, and I don't want to take the bus with all random old people from Chicago.
But we could do the bus because I feel like it's not that long of a drive to the Horseshoe Casino at least.
That's true. That's true. All right. We'll talk off camera.
Yeah.
But just so you know, folks, things we're
Any
thinking
listeners
about.
want to meet us in Gary,
Horseshoe.
Indiana, or wherever it is?
Hilarious. So we're going to move into our hits and shits now, everybody.
Right. I don't have very many because, like I said, I was in Paris, so I need a couple.
I also only have a few. While Grace was in Paris, I wasn't, but my life was still busy. It's still busy. You know, it's that time of year. The birds are chirping. I'm out chirping. What do you want me to do?
You can be busy in the United States, you know.
It's true. It's true.
Even though French people would never admit it. We have things to do here, too.
Amazing. I'm going to start us off with the Tuesday, May 9th. This is like an older puzzle somehow. I was still doing this one. 16 across. Oh, let me just tell you more about this puzzle. It's the Tuesday, May 9th, New Yorker by Eric Agard. Okay. 16 across. Can you point me in the right direction? ? And the answer was, I need a hint, which made me think of escape rooms. And asking for hints from the game master. And the last one we did, I definitely feel like something was broken because
something was broken there. Because looking back, his hint made no sense. If
I know.
you've ever done escape room, we basically were trying to figure out this one puzzle. I got like what it was trying to say, but nothing was working. We asked for a hint, and the guy just like, I forget what he had to say something totally random, and then just gave us like the number lock. Didn't make any sense. Something was broken there.
Exactly.
Anyway.
He's like, well, you have to tell me, and it's like, well. You never said anything that we would have there at the moment we have to tell you anything. Like,
right?
It was a little weird, but sometimes you need to ask for a hint because, you know, sometimes something in the escape room is broken. Maybe the game master doesn't know, or maybe you're just not smart enough to figure out the puzzle. But it happens. It happens to the best of us. Anyway, also 44 across, mental picture, and the answer was image. And I've been seeing these TikToks recently, so this is not at all, like, I didn't research this. I'm just, you know, pontificating on something I saw on the internet. But there are people that when you tell them to, like, think of something, they cannot visualize it in their mind. Right. Can you visualize, like, if I were to say, like, think of an apple, do you see an apple?
I think so. I don't know. That has been going around, I feel like, on Tumblr forever. People are like, I have anaphasia or whatever. That's not what it's called, but something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think I can picture an apple. Like, I can imagine one, but it's not like I like close my eyes and there's like a projector on my eyelids.
Right. You know? Exactly. Like, what does it mean when someone says, I can't picture it? It's like, yeah, you cannot literally like, it's not like an apple is floating in a black space and you can like rotate it. I mean, if you imagine yourself looking at an apple in a black space and rotating it, yes, then you can see that. But it's not like, yeah, like you said, it's not like a projector image or like flashcards or whatever. So,
right.
Anyway, I don't know, but just thought I'd bring it up. This was funny. 49 across. What might result in standing water? ? Bottle flip.
Boom.
Nice. And then 12 down. Cold mug full ? Death stare.
Ooh. I was like, what's a cold drink you have in a mug?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, very good. That's what I have from that puzzle.
Well, I did the May 18th New Yorker by Robin Weintraub. The opener, it was one across, title for film dumbs, Euphigenia Doubtfire, and it's Mrs. Doubtfire. I didn't realize that was like her first name, or the first name that he chose for her in the movie.
I didn't know that either. That's funny.
36 across, candy maker whose factory might alarm an OSHA inspector. Wonka.
Wonka, of course.
8 down, word with scary, sporty, ginger, baby, and posh. And the answer was spice.
Of course.
9 down, behave like a hot dog, question mark. And the answer was pant, yeah.
Nice.
27 down, rude expression that's not rude when it appears on a cake in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Eat me. Well, it's only rude to some people, depending on the situation.
True, that's very true. Alex just made me watch the 1997 or whatever, Alice in Wonderland with like Gene Wilder and Martin Short. It was very trippy.
I've never seen that one.
Or not Oprah, Whoopi Goldberg's in it. Yeah, it's crazy.
I didn't even know there was one with Whoopi Goldberg. That's hilarious.
She's the Cheshire Cat.
I love that for her.
Mm-hmm. Well, It was very weird.
I thought you were going to say like the 1990 or whenever the animated one came out. Was that the 50s or something? 60s?
Yeah, and then a new one came out like semi-recently-ish.
Right.
And Johnny Depp was in it.
Yes.
Anyway. Oh, wait, sorry. Random fact about Johnny Depp. He's in like, when I was in Paris, there were all these movie posters for a movie that he's in. He's in a French movie and he's speaking French in it.
Oh, yeah, he's playing one of the Louis the Whatevers,
yeah.
Also, you were in Paris when Jennie from Blackpink and V from BTS were spotted holding hands, the two biggest pop stars in the world.
In Paris?
They were in Paris. Did you not see them walking along the Seine?
Them. No, I didn't see them.
Oh my God. Anyway, newsflash, they're dating. Everyone's shook. It's fine. So you had an eventful Paris trip. Well, things were happening in Paris because Cannes is happening too. That's not in Paris, but there's just like a lot of celebs in France right now.
Right. I didn't see a single one. I didn't even know about that. Maybe that's why our tickets were so expensive.
Whoops. Okay, so I did the Sunday, May 15th New York Times by Sid Sivakumar. I want to talk about the theme specifically. This theme was bonkers, and I had to read the Rex Parker blog to make sure that I fully understood what was happening. So when you open the puzzle, you see that there's these little yellow markers within the grid, and you look at them closely, and they look like merger signs like that you would see on the highway. Mm-hmm. And the puzzle is called Alternate Endings. Essentially, the puzzle is like doing a visual representation of zipper merges. So the revealer is 114 across. With 116 across, procedures in which drivers take turns joining a single stream, as demonstrated 5 times in this puzzle. So there's going to be 5 zipper merges in this puzzle. I'm just going to read you 2 examples of the clues. So essentially, there'll be 2 clues, 2 down clues that they won't be finished. Like the answers won't be finished. And then the missing endings from those answers zipper into a 3rd down clue to create a totally new word. Okay, so here we go. 15 down. Meat and vegetables dish with Creole and Cajun varieties. And the answer is jambalaya, but it's only jamba was filled in, and so you're missing Laya. And then 1 down. Person with a stopwatch. The answer is timekeeper, but what was filled in was Timeke. So you're missing EPER. So if you were to zipper Leia and Eper together, you would get the answer to 47 down. Many a presidential election occurs in one. And the answer is leap year. So if you zipper Leia and Eper together, you get leap year.
Wow.
Right?
Impressive.
Also, interesting fact. Very true, and something I never realized, even though it seems so obvious.
Right, yeah.
Another one, 14 down, Chinese New Year decoration. When I filled this in, I filled it in, I knew it was red because it started with R, but I was like, there's not enough space I put in like red lantern or anything like that. The answer was red lantern, but it was REDLAN. So you're missing
Mm-hmm.
the turn. And then 21 down, electrical wiring nexus, and the answer was switchbox, but all that was filled in was SWITC. So you take the missing endings and they zipper into the answer for 53 down, where hip hop originated, and you get the Bronx. So
That's crazy.
wild and impressive and very fun to solve. So thank you, Sid.
Yeah,
Appreciate
how would you
that.
even like go around doing that? You come up with the third clue first, like the Bronx, and then unzipper the words.
Exactly. Who's to say?
Wow.
That's all I have from that
Some
puzzle. There was
people-
more, but like that puzzle, the theme was the star there.
Yeah, that's cool.
What else you got?
I did the Wednesday, May 17th New Yorker by Will Nediger. 19 across. Friends who are in close contact, question mark. And the answer was cuddle buddies.
Cute.
Right. 41 across. Hairstyle that might be deliberately messy. The answer was bun. I feel like a messy bun, it's like when you try to do a messy bun, it's horrible. But yet when you just throw your hair up and you're doing something, and then
you're like,
you're
oh.
like, wow, my bun looks amazing.
Exactly.
49 across. Extremely famous person is household name. 3 down. Firm counter offer, question mark. And the answer was hard salami. 31 down. When you're in the majority, and the answer was adulthood. I'm guessing like the majority of your life you're in adulthood, maybe? Or I don't know. Or,
Yeah,
like,
I
later
think
in your
so.
life. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that one. Thanks,
Very
Will.
good. I also did a New Yorker. I did the Monday, May 15th New Yorker by Cameron Austin Collins. There were some really good ones in this one. 13 across. Quickie on vacation, question mark. The answer was beach read.
Nice.
You could take that to the nude beach if you are
Mhm.
interested in that. I did a topic on nude beaches most recently, I think. 16 across. Startup hurdle, perhaps.
Funding.
Car trouble.
Nice.
Pretty good, right? I was going to do this as my topic, but I ended up not. 23 across, where lifelines come in handy, question mark.
Who Wants to be a Millionaire?
Palms.
Oh.
Your lifelines, your heart lines.
Ooh,
I was going
that
to do
would've
palm
been-
reading, but then there's
Yeah, that
something
would've been
else
good.
from this puzzle that I ended up doing, so we'll get to that. 28 across, bit of makeup, question mark.
DNA.
Lies.
Ooh. Wow, I'm like 0 for 0 here.
That's okay. 56 across, you might get this one. McDonald's offering served fried until 1992. I just thought this was an interesting fact.
I don't know.
Apple pies. And the reason I know this...
They used to fry the apple pies?
Yes.
Oh.
The reason I know this is the McDonald's apple pie was like my grandfather's favorite. But he stopped really going to McDonald's. Like he would always say like, oh, I used to eat the McDonald's ones. And now I know why he liked them fried. And instead he would go and get the ones from Wawa. And he would eat those little like, apple pies. Anyway.
Do they fry them at Wawa?
They don't. But I think he must have just cut his losses. Instead of going to 2 places, Wawa for the coffee, McDonald's for the fried pie.
Right. It's like if he's not getting the fried pie, then he could just get...
Exactly.
Right.
Pieces of my childhood are coming together thanks to this clue.
Questions have been answered.
They have.
All right. Yeah, that's basically all I have. So.
Oh, that's fine. I'll end with the Sunday, May 14th Washington Post by Evan Bernholz. Again, really good theme. The title of the puzzle was Change of Direction. So this is kind of another interesting, like playing with down answers type puzzle. Not like Sid Sivakumar's, but sort of similar. The revealer was 24 across, make money, and an alternate title for this puzzle. And the answer was turn a profit. And then another revealer, 123 across, money up front, and an alternate title for this puzzle, down payment. So I'll just read a couple clues and answers. Essentially, there will be these answers, these down answers that they don't finish in just the slot for the down answers. They turn and eventually go down a couple squares over. For example, 20 and the down element of the answer, the turning down element of the answer is a type of currency. So just layers and layers here. 27 across, one concerned with possessions. And the full answer is materialist. And in the word materialist is the rial, R-I-A-L, which is the currency of Iran. But the way that the clue is filled in for 27 down, all that was there was matter, M-A-T-E-R. But then the clue kind of turns into the across, and you get the rial, and then it kind of turns down into another clue. So then 47 across, have strong feelings about. And the answer was care a lot, but this kind of word twists throughout the puzzle, and the real, the R-E-A-L, is the currency of Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And then 20 or 75 across, bibimbap or pilaf, for example. And the answer was rice dish. And it is the Cedi, C-E-D-I, is the currency of Ghana. And this kind of like twists and turns throughout the puzzle, like it turns down. You'd have to see it to believe it. I'll tell you that. Also, throwback, 32 across, nickname of a former Microsoft Office assistant that resembled an office fastener. Do you remember his name?
Clippy?
Clippy, yes. Throwback.
I miss him.
I miss him too. And then I'll end with 71 across, non-hardcore gamers derisively.
Noobs?
Casuals, which is truly one of my favorite insults ever. I love it.
I guess I'm a casual because I didn't know that. And I am, and I'm fine with that.
She's okay with that. It's okay to have a casual thing in your life. Not everything has to be intense. But that's all I have.
Well, shall we flip the coin?
I think we should flip the coin. Give me 1 second here. I usually have the coin pulled up because it's a digital coin. All right, here we go. I'm flipping.
She claims that she flips a coin every time. There's no way for me to prove that.
There's no way to prove. She used to be able to prove it when we sat in the same room and recorded together, but
right. It's been a long
it's been
time
many,
since then.
many years. Okay, I'm flipping the coin now. Heads.
Well, interesting.
Interesting. It's crazy.
Very convenient for you.
Okay, so my topic comes from the Monday, May 15th New Yorker by Cameron Austin Collins. 36 down. MEJ, it's an abbreviation of measurement, whose correlation with health is often misunderstood.
BMI?
3 letters. Yes, BMI. We're talking about the BMI, or body mass index, today.
This is a big topic.
There is a lot about this topic, and there are a lot of adjacent things like that this topic is going to reference that I can't go into. Yeah. But we're going to just do like a general overview like we always do. So, you know, if you have curiosity, hopefully this sparks some curiosity and you can continue doing your research in your own time. Right? So do you know much about BMI?
Isn't it just calculated based on like your height and weight?
That's right. Yeah. And there's like an actual formula, but it's a very simple formula, quote unquote simple, which is part of the reason why it's so pervasive, but we'll get to that. Anyway, so I'm going to start us off easy. I'm going to do a basic definition. I'm just going to read directly from what I pulled from Wikipedia here, just so you know, because I just want to get us set up. So people who don't know what BMI is, or maybe you have a certain understanding of what BMI is, we're just going to kind of start us off easy. So BMI, or body mass index, is a value derived from the mass, so weight, and the height of a person. The BMI is defined as the body mass divided by the square of the body height. Okay?
Okay.
BMI is often like displayed through a table or a chart. Like you might have been in your doctor's office and seen like a BMI table or chart that has like lines or like contour lines and gradients of color. And these lines and gradients of color show different BMI categories. Okay, we're still with Wikipedia. Quote, the BMI is a convenient rule of thumb used to broadly categorize a person as underweight, normal weight, overweight, or obese based on tissue muscle or tissue mass, so muscle, fat, and bones, and your height. Okay, so that's like generally what BMI is. Now that we sort of kind of understand what BMI is, let's kind of like go through the history. It's what we do in this podcast. I got my information from truly so many sources. So if you're curious to know exactly which sources, write to me. But the main ones, I got information from, quote, Adolphe Quetelet and the Evolution of Body Mass Index by Sylvia Carousel, MD, on Psychology Today. Also, Is BMI a Scam by Alice Callahan on New York Times. And also The Bizarre and Racist History of the BMI from Elemental on Medium. And many, many more. Okay, let's get started.
Dive in.
We're heading back 200 years. We're going to be hanging out with a guy named Adolphe Quetelet. He's a Belgium academic, and his studies included astronomy, mathematics, statistics, and sociology. Notice how he doesn't have, like, you know, medical interest or like a medical background. So.
Right.
So he established, I'm just going to go through some of his achievements and why he was important during the time. He established the Brussels Observatory. He was its director for 50 years. He established the first International Conference of Statistics, and some consider him to be the founder of statistics as a scientific discipline. Cool. He was like obsessed with statistical data and collected data on rates of crime with an interest in what he called moral anatomy. And that is as sketchy as it sounds. Marriage, mental illness, and mortality, including suicides. He believed that conclusions came from data of large numbers, so populations, rather than from a study of individual peculiarities. So, like, he was interested in studying huge, you know, groups of populations rather than individually studying, you know, one person at a time. He is credited with co-founding, or at least, at the very least, inspiring the founding of the School of Positivist Criminology, which influenced criminologists and eugenists like Cesare Lombroso. Some sketchy things are happening here.
Right.
I can't really go into the positivist criminology school, but I will give you a very, you know, quick rundown. It has been used for centuries, and it has recently come under fire by researchers, activists, and many other people. They accuse positivist criminology of being inherently racist and based on pseudoscience like phrenology. If you don't know what phrenology is, it's like the study, essentially, it's one of the studies of anatomy, how you can like look at somebody's anatomy to discover whether or not they're like a criminal, for among other things. Okay. Other criticisms are that the positivist school would inappropriately use valid scientific ideas to further its racist ideology. Cesare Lombroso, for instance, believed that this is one of the people that was influenced by Quetelet. He believed that people of color were a separate species, arguing in his writing Homo Criminalis that people of color were, quote, savages by birth and were easily identified by physical characteristics that he claimed linked them to primates. And then from the Medium article, quote, for Lombroso, people of color were some kind of subspecies congenitally driven to commit crimes, end quote. Okay. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of like how Quetelet's research would end up being used. He also this Quetelet person founded the idea of anthropometry, the scientific study of the measurement and proportions of the human body, which sounds like it could be sort of harmless because there are like biological differences depending on various things. Except it often falls into the same bucket of pseudoscience and social categorization with the likes of phrenology and other racist ideologies. So this guy does not have like a clean past, right? Everything about him is kind of shady. And I've already made note of this, but I'll say it again, that while Quetelet had his PhD in mathematics, he was not a physician and he did not study medicine. Nevertheless.
I mean, it feels like he has nothing based in science. He's basically just like coming up with research to prove that he's racist.
Exactly. And like something we'll talk about, but I'll just say it here, is when he invented what eventually became renamed as the BMI, it was not to be, he wasn't using it for medical things. He was using it to back his sociological writings. He's interested in sociology, which, you know, racist sociology aside, he wasn't trying to use it for another problematic thing like body shaming. You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to do that, but that's what it is used for now. Whatever. Okay. So let's see. Yes, he was not a physician, but he was interested in the measurements of the human body. We already talked a little bit about his, what is it called? Anthropometry. So he became obsessed with this concept of le homme moyen, or the average man. And for Quetelet, le homme moyen was the ideal. This wasn't like average, like not good. Average, like what is the most mean version of the human, the median, right? Like that is the perfect version of the human. So from one of his writings, quote, "If the average man were completely determined, we might consider him as the type of perfection, and everything differing from his proportion or condition would constitute deformity or disease or monstrosity."
Okay.
So in his search of the average man, he gathered information on the height and weight of different populations. He had no interest in the study of obesity, but his studies eventually went on to form a lot of that. So he created an index, and he named it the Quetelet Index. It would eventually be renamed BMI. Essentially, he studied a bunch of different populations. They were all white populations. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And he put them into this index, which we now know as the BMI. And it hasn't changed since he invented it in like the 1800s.
Oh my God.
Okay, so let's fast forward to in the years after his index was invented, researchers struggled with creating a standardization that measured body weight and categorized, quote, overweightness and, quote, obesity, as well as associated medical implications of these categorizations. In the beginning of the 20th century, because remember, his index was not used for that yet. Like, people weren't using it for that. So scientists were struggling to find a way to categorize the human body and how to say across all the different biological differences that all of us have, how can we easily determine whether or not someone is obese or underweight or any of these things? They struggled with this. So in the beginning of the 20th century, insurance companies were like, wait, we got to figure this out, because they began associating excessive weight with decreased life expectancy. And they weren't doing this they weren't interested in this from like a medical standpoint of like helping the mortality rate, but from a we're losing money standpoint. So what can we do to like save ourselves and like not lose money on this? So they pulled a bunch of different associations from data compiled on customers who had purchased life insurance policies during a particular time period. However, there was no attempt at standardization. So some of these people in the samples were reporting their own height and weight, often inaccurately, and those who actually measured wore their own clothing, shoes. They were done in environments that like there could be like, there was no control. This wasn't like an actual scientific study. There's just like random data collection. And so they would use this information to, you know, deny people life insurance and so on and so forth. In the early 1940s, the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company developed tables of desirable weight that did not include a person's age and introduced an initially arbitrary and subjective measure of body frame, so small, medium, and large. They revised their tables over the years, though some people may remember that they were very popular benchmarks during the 50s and 60s. So if you're a listener and you were around in the 50s and 60s, do you remember the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company's metrics for desirable weight? Let me know. I'm curious. And so then not only were life insurance companies using this, but they were getting pitched to physicians, and physicians started using them in their medical practices as well. Presumably, during all of these years, the Quetelet Index was lost to history. So how did we get the BMI? there's a lot that goes on, but eventually we land in 1972 when researcher Ansel Keys popularized the use of Quetelet's original index. Keys claimed that it was superior to other indexes after they compared the index with measurements of fat by skin calipers. So, like, it was not just by measuring your height and your weight, but they were also taking the denseness of your skin if it was pinched by skin calipers, which is bananas to me, and then underwater weighing, so your body density, in an analysis of over 7,400 healthy men in 5 countries. Ironically, in this paper, Keys and his colleagues note that Quetelet's never actually advocated for his ratios to be used as a kind of general measure of body fat. Additionally, a paper published by the British Journal of Preventive and Social Medicines in 1962 says that there is no formula that related weight to height that could do it accurately, and it couldn't actually measure fat. So people knew that these were not accurate indicators of fatness, quote unquote, and health in individual patients. But they were like, it kind of still works anyway, so let's just use it. Nevertheless, since the release of Keys' paper, body mass index became the standard indicator for obesity. Currently, people with BMIs of 30 or higher are considered obese, and those with 25 to 29 are considered overweight. 18.5 supposedly means you're underweight, and between 18.5 and 24.9 is considered normal. But BMI is a mere estimation of the amount of fat tissue that any given person has. It does not differentiate fat from muscle and can be inaccurate in certain populations, such as athletes or those who are very tall or very short.
Right. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, you can see people who their bodies look completely different, but maybe they are the same height and weigh the same thing. It's like, you can't tell anything from that.
Exactly. And a huge reason for the popularity of the BMI is mainly because it's convenient. So
Right.
A physician who has a BMI chart in his office requires no more than a balanced scale for weight and a tape measure for height. There's even a means of converting the ratio to pounds and inches by multiplying the system by 703. So, like, it's an easy, mathematical, formula. You can have it right in your office and you can just point to it. You can be like, you're overweight, lose weight. It's quote unquote simple. It's convenient. And of course, we have to go back to the insurance companies. American insurance companies began adopting the BMI model as a way to determine coverage for policyholders. And as a result, the concept of weight as an indicator of health began to take root. And that sentiment, weight as an indicator of health, there's so much in there. And the history of that sentiment is not only like complicated just from like a sense of like, we don't want to be body shaming people. We don't want to be like ruining people's mental health, but there's like a racist history there. There's many books you can read on like the idea of obesity relating back to racist ideologies from like the 1700s. If you're curious, just write to us. I can send you a couple of these books, but we can't really talk about that. This wasn't the only thing that was kind of like the BMI was not the only thing that was like making it seem like fatness equals unhealthy. There was a lot at play here. So if we are to trust in the BMI concept of weight as an indicator of health, former NFL running back Marshawn Lynch would be considered obese and Muhammad Ali would be considered overweight. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? According to dietitian Tim Crow, quote, at an individual level, BMI really falls down. It only gives you a very rough measure of what someone's health could be like based on this number, end quote. According to Dr. Yanni Friedhoff, an associate professor of family medicine at the University of Ottawa, BMI is, quote, fairly useless when looking at the individual. BMI can't tell, for instance, what percentage of a person's weight is from their fat, muscle, or bone. Their measure also does a poor job of predicting a person's metabolic health. In a 2016 study, more than 40,000 adults in the United States, researchers compared people's BMIs with more specific measurements of their health, like their insulin resistance, markers of inflammation and blood pressure, triglyceride, cholesterol, and glucose levels. Nearly half of those classified as overweight and about a quarter of those classified as obese were metabolically healthy by these measures. On the other hand, 31% of those with a normal body mass index were metabolically unhealthy. Janet Tamiyama, the lead author of the study and an associate professor of health psychology at the University of California, LA, says, quote, BMI can label a huge swath of our population as somehow, I can't say this word, aberrant because of their weight, even if they're perfectly healthy, end quote. Additionally, a large flaw of BMI is its inability to account for the natural differences in body types between people of various ethnicities, genders, and ages. When the test was originally devised in the 1800s, it was developed and validated mostly in white men, so French people, Scottish people, and a few others. But body composition and its relationship with health can vary depending on your gender, race, and ethnicity. For instance, women and people of color are largely not represented in many of these data, and nevertheless, they're being used to create a universal standard. According to dietitian Fiona Weiler, quote, the BMI takes someone who felt like their health was fine, the lived experience of their body as non-problematic, except for maybe other people's attitudes. They walk, talk, swim, whatever they want to do. And it tells that person, no, you will never have health while you are while you are way you are. I copied this directly from the article, and I must have misspelled something somewhere. Continuing with the quote, if we can stop labeling people as unhealthy immediately on the basis of their BMI, that would do a lot for helping those people to improve their well-being. A BMI label, beyond what is considered healthy, will lead to feelings of shame, which may result in worse health outcomes if they avoid seeking treatment in the future. Alternatively, an over-reliance on the BMI as a diagnosis by health professionals can mean other issues go untreated. Chloe Pappas, who is a campaigner and an organizer at like a thrift store essentially for plus-size clothing in Melbourne, Australia, says, quote, I've lost count of the number of times I've gone to an appointment with a really simple issue, like a virus, and come away feeling pretty ashamed or frustrated because the doctor chose to only focus on my BMI or weight, end quote. She says this has resulted in her skipping doctor's appointments in the past to avoid the conversation. And I'm going to end on another quote from Chloe. Quote, for me and for many other people in bigger bodies, the BMI can feel almost like a weapon in a doctor's office or medical settings. The obsession with BMI makes you feel like you aren't worthy of care. We should move towards a space where all bodies get equal access to healthcare that doesn't focus on weight or size, end quote.
Right. That's like a huge issue that I read about a lot, is that people, you know, if you are considered overweight by the BMI and you go to the doctor, it's like that's all they focus on. Oftentimes people are like, my doctor missed like that I had, you know, this, because all that they could focus on was that I needed to lose weight, but I had other medical issues that had nothing to do with my weight. But it's shocking to me to hear how BMI started, that it really has like, it's not even real research. I mean, there's no control group, and it's just based on white men in France. Like, and yet it's like used so widely.
Exactly.
In a medical setting. Like but it's like a completely arbitrary study. I mean, they just had people submit their height and weight. They didn't even like do a controlled study, like bringing people in.
Right.
And them themselves.
And there's no research to say that like the research is this 2016 research that came out that the BMI, where you fall in the BMI, really has no correlation, or the correlation, like doctors believed that the correlation was much higher, or maybe it's much lower now, but like there's no correlation between health and body mass and height.
Right.
That's
right.
That's the kicker. Like somebody can be overweight to the BMI and be healthy. Somebody can be normal on the BMI and be unhealthy. That's why we can't use the BMI as the standard. Like,
right. I know there's so like this obsession with being healthy when it's really just people just want to be skinny because like society, you know, tells you that you need to be skinny and treats you better. But it's also like this obsession with being healthy. Some people just aren't healthy, and it's nothing that they can. Like, exactly. I feel like we assign like a moral goodness to being healthy, and it's like not everyone can be healthy. Sometimes you just like have a disease, and there's nothing that you can do about it.
Sometimes,
like,
exactly.
It's just
sometimes you have
whatever.
You know, like a chronic illness, like a disability. Right. Like there is nothing inherently immoral about those things, but in the medical profession, BMI is like one small segment of like medical discrimination, but like this, yeah, like you said, this moral lens that we put on these things can be really detrimental to people. Yeah, like how do we view people with chronic illness? Are they morally wrong? Did they cause their chronic illness? Because that's the thing.
If
People say
skinny,
you caused that it's your fault that you're fat, and it's your fault that you're sick because you're fat. And every reason why that you come to the office for your virus, for this, that, the other thing, it's all because you're fat. And it's like,
but it's like, but if you have like lupus, like, you know, I don't know. It's just so. It's.
I know. This just scratches the surface. There's so much more here.
Right. There's like a whole podcast dedicated just to this.
Yes.
Like obsession that we have with being quote unquote healthy when it's not really anything to do with being healthy.
Yeah, and because healthy in these instances equals skinny.
Right.
That's what they're using healthy to mean. They're not using healthy to mean like physically well. They're using it to mean skinny. And even if you aren't physically well, like there isn't anything wrong with that morally.
Right. Exactly. It's like, yeah, so what if you are unhealthy? Like that's okay. You deserve to get access to the resources that you need. That's
and
not
treated like a human.
Failing.
Yeah.
Right. And like stories about people who lose a lot of weight because they have like cancer or some other, you know, actual unhealthy, like medically unhealthy thing, and they get like praised for it. It's like that's so messed up.
I know.
Well, that's
not to get you fired up on a Friday morning, but yes,
that's
as you can imagine, like this topic was difficult to research because I was like, oh, there's gonna be so much written on this, it'll be easy. Well, there is so much written on it. There's too much written on it to the point where like I had to really boil it down. But yeah, if you're interested in learning more, just let me know. I got sources. I got sources out the wazoo.
Sources. Well, Alex is listening to the Maintenance Phase podcast right now and really likes it. So I've heard good things about that. They kind of like debunk a lot of, you know, health, diet, culture stuff. So
amazing.
Well, my topic is a bit of a departure from that.
Amazing.
It's from the May 18th New Yorker by Robin Weintraub. 38 down, channel once known for rock and pop videos that now airs mostly reality and comedy shows.
Is it VH1 or MTV?
MTV.
Amazing.
I'm talking about MTV. From music videos to reality TV.
Oh my
everything
God.
In between. But, okay. Before we talk about MTV, I just want to talk about music videos in general. Okay. So there was a program called Top of the Pops in the UK, for all of our UK listeners, which this was like in the 70s, that would be broadcasted every Thursday on BBC One for 30 minutes, and it would feature performances of some of the week's best-selling pop music records. So it's Top of the Pop charts.
Got it.
On November 10th, 1975, Queen, instead of performing live or lip syncing, which is what a lot of like bands would do, they made a music video for their song Bohemian Rhapsody, which it's like an iconic video. It's kind of what the, you know, album art is from. But they did that because the song is like so complicated that they were like, it's easier to just make this music video and air it instead of trying to have them like lip sync or perform it live.
Of course.
So people like went nuts for this music video because that was like rare at the time. For bands to do that. And so all of a sudden people are like, what if we had like an entire TV channel just for music videos? Not just this like, you know.
Isn't it funny how these things start?
Mm-hmm. So thanks, Queen. I got most of my information from an article on SmithsonianMag.com called At 40, MTV is Officially Over the Hill by Michelle Delgado. So over in America, in 1979, Warner Cable Corporation and American Express had just created a joint entertainment company venture. They already had the movie channel. They had Nickelodeon. The movie channel was for adults. Nickelodeon was for kids. They were like, we need to make a channel for teenagers because we have this whole market that we're not tapped into.
Yeah.
So then that's when the idea for MTV, you know, a channel for music videos for rock and roll came about.
Ooh.
And on midnight, August 1st, 1981, MTV arrived on air.
Cool.
The New York Times article announcing the channel said that it would be for, quote, the big kids, the kind that get turned on by the big rock sound and the weird assemblages that make it.
Amazing.
Fun fact, MTV was like stationed in New York, but the staff had to go over to New Jersey to watch the first premiere because it only was available on New Jersey cable networks when it first came out, MTV. Because at that time, like, cable companies had to buy, access to the channel. So they were like, no one's going to watch this except for New Jersey. New Jersey was like, we'll take it.
I love it.
So it aired on midnight. The very first clip ever showed was footage of the Apollo 11 moon landing, including an astronaut, right?
Okay,
planting a flag on the moon with MTV's logo on it.
That's hilarious.
Superimposed MTV's logo. A voiceover proclaimed, "Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll," followed by the Bugles' "Video Killed the Radio Star" music video. That was the first music video that aired on MTV, which is
so cool.
That little moon landing clip would play at the top of the hour every hour for the next 5 years. So that is why that astronaut is still the channel symbol today. Like the VMAs, the award is an astronaut. That's why the designers who came up with that said, quote, "We thought we're like the guys landing on the moon and claiming it. We claim this land for music."
Amazing.
MTV dedicated 24 hours a day and 7 days a week to sharing music videos guided by on-screen personalities known as video jockeys or VJs. And this continued for a little over 3 years before the network changed to a new format in 1984. But when it first came out, it was literally just like, music videos over and over again. Throughout the 1980s, MTV drafted pop stars, including Cyndi Lauper, David Bowie, and Boy George, into ad campaigns urging viewers to demand the channel from their cable operators. And it worked. Cable networks over the next decade expanded to include many more channels, including MTV. So
Amazing.
All of a sudden, the 70s were just a time where people were like, we want access to all these different channels. So cable used to only be able to get a couple channels, like, in your, town. And then most cable channels expanded to having like 70.
Amazing.
But MTV did have issues. In 1983, David Bowie was promoting his song Let's Dance and was doing an interview with VJ Mark Goodman, but instead of promoting his song, he instead started asking questions about why MTV featured so few Black artists. This is like an iconic interview that he did.
Amazing.
And this is true. I mean, this has been a criticism of MTV. They had a lot of excuses as to why they didn't. They said, well, we only show rock and roll music, and rock and roll is mostly white men, but that's just not true. That, whatever. I'm not going to get too far into that, but as far as like MTV trivia goes, like one of the first major Black artists that they showcased was Michael Jackson and his music video for Thriller. He wasn't the first, like there were other Black artists, but he was the first one that they showed a lot. And they had a huge viewership for Thriller. I mean, the Thriller music video is almost like a movie, and
it's iconic, yeah.
And it also, that music video created the market for buying music videos on VHS, which is like just so crazy to think about that you would go and like buy, your music video.
My friend had Thriller on VHS. Is how I watched it for the first time.
Amazing. In 1983, the New York Times said, quote, "Michael Jackson finally brought Black music to MTV." That was in 1983, but then it wasn't until 1988 that MTV finally had a show that centered around Black artists called Yo! MTV Raps. This show brought NWA, MC Hammer, Tupac, Sir Mix-a-Lot, and other iconic hip-hop artists to the channel. Host and hip-hop artist Fab Five Freddy told New York Magazine, quote, "It felt more interesting and engaging to have you immersed in the world where the music's coming from. Yo! MTV Raps put hip-hop in every home. That helped with the sales, that helped with the fan base, that helped everything grow." So I guess there were still issues, though, with MTV. Like, most of the people who worked there were white, and there's, like, all these stories about how, like, they thought certain lyrics were, like, there's a lyric in a rap song that spells out HERB, and some woman was like up in arms. She's like, "It's about marijuana," and they're like, "No, that's slang for nerd, but you don't know that because you're white and this isn't like your music or whatever.
You're not the target audience, hon."
Yeah. But they did have that one show. But their impact on the music industry was huge. In the 80s, they made Madonna and Guns N' Roses into stars. But these days, as you've heard people say, for a while, there's not much music on MTV anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there really hasn't been since, we've been born.
Yeah.
One of the turning points was in 1990 and 1991. Bill Clinton was a constant present on MTV, and then he later became elected president. So Craig Marks, a music editor who would later co-create an oral documentary about MTV called I Want My MTV, said, quote, "Once you've helped elect a U.S. president, are you going to go back to playing winger videos?" And it's like they realized that they had, a lot of influence.
Got it.
So that was in 91, and then 1992 was the year The Real World came out. So
yeah.
Originally, MTV wanted to do a scripted soap opera with teens, but producers Mary Ellis Bunham and John Murray pitched an idea that would be way cheaper. They were like, why don't we get 7 teenagers, put them in a New York City loft apartment, and have cameras roll 24/7? And the first season looked way different than, more recent ones did. An NPR article called Did the Real World Really Kill MTV by Linda Holmes said that the first season, quote, looks like a Ken Burns documentary compared to later seasons and current reality programming. Long scenes, long conversations. It started as a surprisingly contemplative show that contained some of the most candid discussions of sex and race that I'd ever seen on television up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. I mean, there's a lot of, they recently did a reunion of the people from that first season.
Wow.
And they talked about like, yeah, that was one of the first times you saw, a Black person and a white person having like a very candid, honest conversation about race in the US.
And it's
like,
young
on
people
TV.
too, which I think
right.
is really important. Yeah.
So they did New York, then they had a season in LA, then they had a San Francisco season, which ended up being the last year or so of one of the roommate, Pedro Zamora's life before he died of AIDS. So the season showed his wedding and his deep and genuine friendship with a much more conservative roommate. And then sadly he died shortly after that season.
Mm-hmm.
The article goes on to say that it was the 5th season of The Real World that started relying on more manufactured quote-unquote drama or trashy reality tropes that maybe led to the so-called decline of MTV. The article says, don't blame the first set of 7 strangers if you hate what's on the network now. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think, like, The Real World did change television a lot, and it, there were conversations that you didn't see on TV before. An interesting fact, Karamo from Queer Eye, he was on The Real World back in the day, which is like shocking because he looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
That man like has not aged, but he was like one of the first maybe the first openly gay Black men on
television.
TV.
Yeah.
And in the show, he has conversations with his roommates who maybe like have never, met a gay person or a gay Black person.
Right.
So that was in 1992. And then in 1993, Beavis and Butthead debuted. So Beavis and Butthead was the first adult subversive experimental cartoon of its kind. And it paved the way for other cartoons like Daria, which follows a teen girl as she navigated high school family relationships, politics, race, and more. And I feel like these types of cartoons are what then later led to, like, South Park said they were inspired by Beavis and Butthead. And then you think of like BoJack Horseman and other, more recent like Bob's Burgers, like adult, Bob's Burgers isn't as like dark, but like adult cartoons kind of came from MTV just creating this programming. From 1995 to 2000, MTV slashed its music programming by 40%, replacing it with animated and reality shows. So this is like the MTV I remember growing up watching. Like, yes, there was some music, there was still TRL, but there was also all these reality shows and cartoons. There was Road Rules, which was a spinoff of The Real World. The Ben Stiller Show, the Jon Stewart Show. So MTV kind of started their careers, even though Ben Stiller is a Nepo baby. But anyways, there was also The Challenge, which was like a competition show between participants who were on The Real World and Road Rules. And then there was, which still happens today. I mean, it's still going on now. And then there was True Life, which was a mini drama documentary show, and that was like one of my favorites. I can talk more about True Life later, but I loved True Life. And then in 2005, YouTube launched, and now people had on-demand access to music videos, so MTV focused even more on their non-music content, which makes sense. I mean, like, people wanted MTV to stay the same forever, but by 2005, you could watch whatever music video you wanted on YouTube.
At any time, and you could replay it as many times as you wanted, rather than like having to wait for it to show up on MTV.
Right. But there were all these, like, an article I read about when MTV first aired, there was, like, quotes from different now, famous singers or people in bands talking about how they, like, one guy was, like, on vacation with his family when MTV first aired, and he's like, he spent the entire vacation in the hotel room, like, glued to the TV watching all these music videos. But it's so cool to think about, like, at that time, how crazy that was to all of a sudden have access to these music videos, and it was on 24/7. Like,
yeah,
it just seems so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, so in 2005, after YouTube came out, that's when MTV started coming out with even more shows. My Super Sweet 16, which followed,
wow, yes,
basically very spoiled 16-year-olds having, these huge Sweet 16 parties. Jersey Shore.
Oh my God, yeah.
16 and Pregnant. Fun fact, a 2014 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research tied a 5.7 reduction in teen pregnancies to MTV's 16 and Pregnant. Because a lot of people said when the show came out, they were like, this is encouraging girls to get pregnant. But no, the study showed that when new episodes aired, there were spikes in internet searches for abortion and birth control, as well as fewer teen pregnancies in areas with high rates of viewership.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I remember watching that show and being, like, horrified what these girls were going through and just, like, how hard it was for them.
Right. And it's still going on. That's the crazy thing. Like,
yeah, that's
Teen Mom. Well, now it's Teen Mom.
Yeah.
Still exists. They're not teens. They're like our age. Okay. In 2011, a show called Ridiculousness came onto the scene, and some people may say this is the true, this marks the true fall of MTV. Ridiculousness, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of like America's Funniest Home Videos, but more abrasive, a little less family friendly. In June 2020, a Variety article said that Ridiculousness took 113 hours out of a 168-hour stretch of programming. If you go on MTV, it's literally it's Ridiculousness all day, and then with random movies peppered in.
God.
And some shows, reruns of Catfish or whatever.
Yeah.
MTV says it's because people aren't tuning into regular TV programming anymore like they used to. And if they're channel surfing and they want to just throw something on for a bit, Ridiculousness is the type of show that works for that, because you could just put it on. Grandma, a 10-year-old can both enjoy it.
Right.
It's basically a bad version of TikTok on TV. It's just short, consumable, funny clips, basically. Yeah. This Smithsonian Mag article claims that you can see this rise and fall of MTV through the Video Music Awards, aka the VMAs, which is MTV's award show that centers around music. They have a different one for movies. But over the 4 decades of its run, there have been many iconic pop culture moments at the VMAs.
Oh, yeah.
In 1984, Madonna popped out of a 17-foot-tall cake to perform like a virgin. In 2001, Britney Spears performed I'm a Slave for You with a yellow Burmese python.
Oh my God, iconic.
Do you remember? I just remember watching these.
Yes.
It was so exciting.
Of course.
In 2003, Madonna surprised Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera with a mid-performance kiss.
Yeah,
Shocking.
That was, life-altering.
In 2009, Kanye hijacked Taylor Swift's acceptance speech. I specifically remember watching that my freshman year of college, in our dorms.
I forgot that was at the VMAs.
Right. In 2011, Beyonce had her mid-performance pregnancy announcement. And then in 2012, Lady Gaga showed up in her iconic meat suit.
Oh, yes.
Meat suit. But by 2012, VMA viewership plummeted by more than 50% and has continued to plummet since then. And remember, Ridiculous came out in 2011. So by 2012, it marks when people stopped watching, really. Not because of Ridiculousness, but...
Yeah.
So will MTV ever go back to centering around music? They've tried to reboot MTV Unplugged and TRL, but neither lasted very long. In 2016, MTV did a bunch of marketing for a show called Wonderland that promised to recenter music in MTV's brand, but by the next year it was gone, though the abandoned Twitter account still lives on, so you can find the Wonderland MTV Twitter account. You can make different arguments about when MTV really started to decline. A lot of people will say it's when they stopped showing music videos. That's when we were growing up, that's what we heard from the older generations. Oh, MTV doesn't show music videos anymore.
Yeah.
But this is just my personal, opinion. I think their reality TV shows and cartoons were early markers of popular shows that we see today, like Survivor and Big Brother. Didn't air until 2000, and The Challenge aired in 1998.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
that was like
100%.
before any of that. Then like the Kardashians, Real Housewives, like shows that are really popular today. I don't know if they would have been around without MTV's reality. Not that they were the only channel doing reality shows, but they were one of the ones to do so many. And then like as at first it was, you know, like a Ken Burn documentary, then it became a little more like trashy and Jersey Shore, but it was still like like Jersey Shore I think changed reality TV forever.
Yes. And the story of Jersey Shore is insane. Like, I don't know if anybody knows this, but there's like the members of the Jersey Shore House have done podcasts about this, but like they cast these people through like MySpace messages, truly.
Right.
And it was originally supposed to be on VH1, and then they brought all these people down to the Jersey Shore after they casted them all. It was hard to cast the right people. They finally cast them, bring them out of the Jersey Shore. They paid for everything, but they didn't get paid like to be there.
Right.
And then they left. And the stars didn't hear anything else about it. And then one day, somebody texted like, I don't know, it wasn't, what's one of the guys' name?
Vinny, Pauly.
Pauly D.
Situation.
It's like, you know, Pauly D gets a text and is like, dude, you're on MTV. And he like goes on and he sees like they're starting to promote what is now called Jersey Shore. They didn't even know the name of it. And they didn't even know it was premiering, nothing. And it was like, their life changed overnight because of that, you know?
Right.
Pauly D was like DJing at like small clubs on Long Island, you know? And then he's suddenly like a star.
And they were also, that was like one of the first reality TV shows that brought because like the Real World was like new people every season, but Jersey Shore, it's like they brought them back season 2. And then, you know, you kept seeing them.
Yep.
I love Jersey Shore, and
of course
will watch the reunion episodes because
I love Snooki's content on TikTok. I'm here for it. Yeah.
And I also feel like the Real World and True Life were actually like a really good way for people like me to learn about other types of people before the internet was like what it is today. I mean, I feel like I learned a lot from True Life about like things that other people go through that otherwise I wouldn't have known. You know,
100%.
Like, different things that people live with, like Tourette's and you know, drug addiction.
100%. It really opened my worldview. I grew up in a very small town. Like, I mean, you were in Miami, but like my town was like 2 miles long. You know, MTV, VH1, those reality type TV shows really opened the world up.
Not saying they were all done in good taste. I'm sure like, you know, some stuff was definitely exploitative, but I feel like it was still groundbreaking at the time. Some may say that all that stuff is trashy anyways, but I think the MTV was keeping up with the times and was cutting edge in like what they realized like people wanted to watch, you know, with some of their shows that came out before other shows, like with their, you know, The Challenge and Real World and stuff. Now it just feels like people don't watch TV channels like they used to. I do want to watch the Jersey Shore family reunion, but I'll probably just watch it online. Like, I wouldn't watch it on TV. So maybe the MTV channel will just continue to become like a TikTok reel, basically, that people can just tune in and put on the background if they want. I do kind of miss the days of like old school. Sometimes I miss the days of like old school TV and like just not having everything at your fingertips to stream.
True.
And like finding, you know, watching Adult Swim and stuff like that.
Yeah. I loved MTV so much. And, you know, like you already said, once we started watching MTV, they had already stopped really showing music videos. And that's when like on demand started happening. So all of my friends, we didn't have this, but my friends would have like on demand channels where you could go to the MTV on demand and they had all of the music videos that were in their roster that you could play on demand as well. So like anything that you might have watched on any of their countdown shows, you could also stream it. It was like if you didn't have a computer, you didn't have access to YouTube, you could still on demand stream certain music videos. And the amount of time that me and my friends spent just watching MTV, watching music videos, or putting the music videos on demand, or going on YouTube and watching music videos, like I still do that now. I'm still watching music videos like crazy.
Right.
And like I think one of the first times we hung out, you put on like 3 music videos and we just like hung out. There are times when you're like, let's watch the Ariana Grande music video. Like, I think there's still like a place for that. Yeah. But I think MTV really needs to think about like, are we about music or are we about reality? It doesn't matter which one. I think they could do both. They could do one or the other, but they need to streamline it. Maybe make it more about like TikTok and being online rather than like a television channel.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, now we're moving into cable anyways, because it's like all of these channels are pulling their stuff from Netflix and Hulu. And it's like, oh, if you want to watch Apple like shows, you have to subscribe to Apple TV, and then you
So
have to just
annoying.
subscribe to Peacock. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know. Who
It's
knows?
annoying.
We're just basically moving back to cable, but you choose
Yeah.
like which channels you want. Okay, I'm going to end with a quote from Smithsonian Mag. Quote, though MTV is no longer the culture-defining behemoth, right? It once was, its legacy continues to remain inextricable from pop culture, whether the current generation of teenagers tune in or not.
It's true.
I agree with that. So,
I agree. Oh, now I want to watch music videos.
it makes me so nostalgic, though, for like, because I also used to remember, like, I would go sometimes to my cousin's house, and my older cousin had a TV in her room, and she used to watch, like, because I was allowed to watch a lot of things, but like my parents weren't super strict about what I was watching, but I would, you know, our TV was like in a shared space. So I wouldn't, there was a show called Blind Date or something where people would go on dates, and I like would never want to watch that at home because people were like kissing and stuff. But like I would watch it at like I would sit on her bed, and like she would have it playing on her tiny TV that she had in her room.
Or like Room Raiders, like things like that. They would be talking about sex and things like that. Like I didn't feel comfortable watching that on the family television, you know? Yeah, because ours was in like a common area as well. I remember like there'd be like a small window of time before like my parents got home from work, like after I got home from school, that I could watch things on the TV without being interrupted. I was really into the Simpsons show. What was that called?
The Simpsons?
Ashley and Jessica Simpson. What was it called?
The Newlyweds with Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. I was obsessed with that one. But anytime that like my parents caught me watching MTV, they'd be like, "You're too young to watch MTV," and it's like I'm watching The Newlyweds, which was actually like one of the more like PG reality shows on like I can't remember, was that VH1 or MTV? But either way, it was one of the more PG ones,
right? And that was one of the. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
The Newlyweds was like one of the first times like celebrities did reality TV, and now it's amazing. Like that's way more common now. But
and like the iconic, is this chicken or is this fish moment with Jessica Simpson?
Because like tuna was chicken of the sea.
Yeah, so clearly scripted, but like just so good.
Right. Speaking of BMI, do you remember how back in the day there was like everyone like was up in arms that Jessica Simpson was fat, and she was not, even that didn't matter, but it's like that's why our generation is like so effed up, because it was like all these things like she's gained so much weight. Look, like I remember there was like she did a performance and all these like magazine articles came out about her. I'm like, she looks amazing.
I'm like, okay, God, she looks awesome, and she's, you know, the low-rise jeans and all of that. Yeah.
She was like skinny, like
she was incredibly thin. Yes. Right? What was the show with Paris and Nicole? Is it called
Simple Life?
Simple Life.
I don't know if that was MTV, but I loved that.
That might have been VH1,
too.
but I mean, I was watching like Flavor of Love,
right?
You know,
I Love New York.
I Love New York. The one with Tila Tequila, who is now bananas.
She's gone through something. Yeah, A Double Shot at Love.
Yeah.
Oh no, she was just a shot at love. It was Ricky and Vicky twins that did A Double Shot of Love, and they were both bisexual.
Insane. Amazing.
Good stuff.
The Flavor of Love was like one of my all-time faves shows ever.
Yeah. Charm School, I think that was VH1.
Charm School, yes, that was VH1. But Flavor Flav is now sober, by the way.
Good for him. That's awesome.
Doing great. Strange how much I've kept up with him over the years.
Well, he's had a big impact on you, I guess.
Yeah.
I miss, like, nostalgic for those times.
I know. The Room Raiders show was traumatizing to me. It made me, like, so worried that someone was going to room raid me.
It was all fake. Zac Efron was on it.
Of course it was, but
actually,
it's still...
a family friend of mine was on Next, and he was trying to be an actor in LA. It's completely scripted. If you want the tea, there you have it.
I didn't realize all of them were scripted. I knew some of them were, but it checks out. It checks out.
He didn't even play himself. I mean, he had like a completely different name, and they're like, yeah, they tell you exactly what to say. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, parental control. Anyways, okay, we can go on and on.
We can go on and on. Yeah.
Let us know what your favorite MTV show was. You can talk to us on Twitter at The Good Eve Girls,
or Instagram at The Good Evening Girls,
or TikTok at The Good Eve Girls.
Come by and say hey. And until next time, please keep curious. We'll be back. We'll be back very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.